What's going on, Bucs fans? Back here at the Power Parlay Podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, JC Allen. We got a great show for you tonight. We're going to talk about the Bucs narrowly escaping Charlotte against the Carolina Panthers in an overtime win. Talk about the resurgence of a one Bucky Irving. Talk about some moves. The Bucs cut a player, signed a couple others. One of them is really intriguing. We'll get into all that. A little bit of preview for the Raiders this upcoming week and the injury report, as always. Of course, we'll do that with a special guest. Find out who it is after the break.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
We are back at it on the other side. Welcome back. Appreciate everyone for joining, tuning in. If you're on one of the podcast mobile apps, appreciate you for listening. Always come on over to YouTube. Catch me live sometimes, usually 7 o'clock on a Wednesday. Our Behind the Enemy Lines is usually recorded. But I appreciate everybody. Appreciate everyone joining on YouTube. Appreciate you guys. Definitely pop in the comments. I'll get to all your questions, all your comments. I appreciate that. And then if you guys can, just give me a like, follow, subscribe, turn on notifications. That way you never miss a show. And, you guys can rock and roll with us. Tell a friend, tell a family member, get as many people as you can tune into the show. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my special guest today. You might know him as Michael Pless from Real Bucs Talk, where he breaks down the X's and O's. Always amazing stuff at draft time where he does in-depth dives for the potential Bucs prospects, but does awesome stuff during the season as well. Him and his partner Mark over there, they break down game film, they'll break down highlights, and they'll just do a general podcasting as well. Definitely check them out. Help them get their subscribers up so they can get monetized and get the bag, as Mark would love to hear. But Michael, how are we doing?
Doing great, JC. It's a pleasure to be back on, and hope you had a great Thanksgiving and obviously a good Buccaneers win over the weekend and up in Charlotte. It was a little cold being there live. Like, it was just not what I'm used to down here in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought it back with you. It's freezing outside today, but yeah, Thanksgiving was great. I had the in-laws in town, sister-in-law and my nieces, so it was good to spend some time with them. My daughter actually had a cheer competition the next day, so we went over to Orlando, and she advanced to nationals, so I'm super proud of her. Awesome. Excited for her. That's next week, so next Wednesday we'll actually be in Orlando. I'm going to try to get a podcast off from the hotel, but we'll figure it out. If not, we'll do a pre-recording or something like that. Figure it out, maybe do it Tuesday night instead. So stay tuned for that. Completely forgot about that till right now, Pless. But yeah, awesome time Thanksgiving. How was yours? Did you get a chance to get with the family, get some good food? What's your go-to meal? What's your go-to side? You guys are big turkey guys over there? We didn't do a turkey. We did a chicken and ham.
Yeah, Thanksgiving was nice. We actually went out to dinner. We went to Dunedin down there at Clear Sky. I think it's Jot House, I think is what it's called. But they had like a turkey dinner, and it was really good. Yeah, not bad at all. So it was nice spending time with family and get outside of the usual, stuff that we do. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. And then dessert afterwards was always good. So
always. And of course, the weekend was topped off. If you did some Black Friday shopping with a great win on Sunday, almost turned into a Black Monday for the Bucs if they didn't win that. I don't know if Todd Bowles was hanging around much longer, but they pulled it off in overtime. What just an amazing performance, I think, by the whole team. Just kind of rallying there at the end. There were some sloppy moments on offense, sloppy moments on defense throughout the game, but towards the end, I think everybody kind of turned it up a little bit. And you saw that, obviously, Anthony Nelson making the game-winning play of the game, I would think, with a peanut punch to Chuba Hubbard to free the ball loose. I don't know about you, but I was like, jump on it. Yeah. It looked like he was about to try to scoop and score.
Right.
Just jump on the ball. He recovered it. The Bucs went down, drove down to about like the 12-yard line, kneeled it out, and then let Chase McLaughlin do his thing. He wasn't going to miss 2 in a row to seal the deal with a walk-off overtime win. The first of the Bucs 3 this season. The other 2 obviously didn't end well. The Buccaneers decided they weren't sending Baker out to the coin toss, instead sending Levante because his luck hasn't been too good. But You were there in person. I know you've watched the All 22 or at least the broadcast at this point, some of it.
Yeah.
What was your takeaways being there live? What was the atmosphere like? I know we heard part of those Bucky chants. I'm sure you were part of that. And then what were your takeaways after watching it on the rewatch?
Yeah, I think, being there live, obviously, good atmosphere, especially in that fourth quarter where things got, pretty tight and, stressful. And then in the overtime, it's like I originally thought, oh man, this is going to end up in a tie. I'm like, Chase McLaughlin's going to make this 55-yard field goal, and then they're going to go down, probably kick a field goal, and we're going to end up with a tie. And that will, make everyone go crazy as far as like the math and like the projections of trying to get into the playoffs with a tie. But overall, I mean, I thought from the start, we had a good, opening drive, get the lead. Mike Evans, awesome catch. I know the fans in the chat are talking about it. So that was pretty cool to see. And then
stop you there. Which was more impressive to you? The Mike Evans catch this week, the one against the Commanders, or the one last year or 2 years ago against the Cowboys?
Oh man, they're all like so amazing. I mean, the Commanders one in week 1 was pretty impressive just because of what he was going up against, full speed, and going downhill with another guy on top of you, and then just putting your hands out at the last second to make that catch. But I mean, you have to go with like the most recent one in memory, and that was this past week. I mean, it was very impressive. I think it was more impressive because he had to like completely stop his momentum, turn, make the one-hand catch, and then get 2 feet in bounds. So I would say that one was pretty good. I mean, photo-esque was probably the Cowboys one. I mean, that one was just great photo. But I mean, he's so good. He makes it very effortless. But overall, the game I thought was, I thought for the most part we were in control. I didn't feel like at any point we were going to, blow this game. Obviously, you feel that when there's only 30 seconds left and they go up ahead. You would have liked to seen us close it out there on, I think, what was it, 17-16. We had the 3rd and 1. If, Payne Durham makes the block, we probably score a touchdown there on Rashad White. He probably gets to the corner.
Tough task, though.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the guy for
60 pounds,
yeah, the guy for the Panthers made a great play.
Was it Shy Tuttle?
I want to say it was either him or one of the linebackers, but they did a good job of blowing that play up. And obviously we didn't get the first down, kicked the field goal. And yeah, I mean, it was just one of those games where we probably should have took advantage and put it away earlier. But
right.
The NFL, unfortunately, it's not a game where you can win easy. It's tough. It's tough to get wins in the league, especially on the road. And Panthers have been playing better football as of late. So we just found a way. And I think you have to be excited about that from a Buccaneers standpoint, that they didn't let this one turn into what we thought for a second was going to be bad, and it was going to end up being a loss. But they found a way.
Yeah, we talked about that too. I mean, we had discussions about, this Panthers team not ready to compete, but we knew Dave was going to have them ready, especially for this game. Dave would have them improving throughout the course of the year. And over these last 4 games, obviously, they win the first 2, lose the second 2, but one is at the last second to the Chiefs. The next one is in overtime. So the arrow is trending up for the Panthers. They spent a lot of resources on the offensive side of the ball this season with those 2 guards in Lewis and Hunt. Obviously, in the draft, their first 3 picks were to the offensive side of the ball with Leggett, Brooks, and Jatavion Sanders. They just sold out a big money deal to Hubbard. And Canales has, and I'll give some credit to my guy, Brad Idzik, too. He's the OC over there. They've got young playing with some confidence, some swagger. And that's only spells trouble for the division if they can turn Bryce Young around. And then, they're going to have a relatively high draft pick this year again. Add some defensive playmakers. They'll have some cash to spend as well. I think the arrow's trending up with them. And, again, I wish Dave the best of luck, except for last week when he lost, a couple weeks coming up, and every other year they're playing for him. But it was good to see, the Bucs handle their own against a team that on paper, especially when you looked at the schedule, especially when you looked, coming out of the bye week, this was a team that they should win no problem. and they came in there, and this is a team that was hot, and, they found a way to get it done against a team that's on the rise. So, you look at the defense, they had some blunders. It seems like every week they're just Bowles went from man to zone, way more success in man. Obviously, you can't run man all the time because you don't get the dogs to get there. With Young's ability to escape the pocket, you saw Kalijah Cansey and Vita Vea chasing him outside on several attempts. What was your opinion of the defense? Was this, I know everyone is always on the fire Bowles, even if they win or if they lose, but as far as the defense, you look at the guys who are out. They're missing Jordan Whitehead. Mike Edwards goes down. They're missing Tyke Smith. They're missing Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. What was your assessment on the defense? Did they play as poorly as, some people were making it out to be, or do you think they played, the hand they're dealt with the guys they had?
Yeah, I think they were just, Todd Bowles' defense, it's about finding a way to create those turnovers. And obviously the turnovers haven't been there consistently this year. And I think what they're trying to do is force teams to kick field goals, which they did in this game. And they were lucky that the kicker missed 2 of them. So when you look at it from that standpoint, they gave up 25 points total if the guy, makes his kicks. Or was it 25? Yeah, 25 points if they make the kicks. But yeah, I mean, overall, the defense is dealt a shorthand right now with the injuries, and obviously the moving parts that they have to deal with. The inconsistency with the pass rush obviously plays a factor, and then the linebacker play, which we have talked off air about with the loss of Servase Dennis, I think plays a huge role. But this is a defense that, they're going to give up yards. They're going to try to, get stops in the red zone and force field goals or try to get a turnover. And that's just the way they're going to be playing. And that's the way Todd Bowles sees fit for how he wants things to work. And, obviously you want 3 and outs. They did that on the first 2 drives. You want to see that more often. And, I think the thing is, the problem with that, though, is you give confidence to the opposing quarterback. Yeah, because they get completions, they get easy completions, and then they find a way to get confident. And you could kind of see that with Bryce Young in this game, where the confidence was starting to build. They found ways to get points, and obviously a big throw by him to Adam Thielen to put the team ahead. And, thankfully the offense, who struggled, I think, in this game, especially with the offensive penalties, the sluggishness from Baker Mayfield. Two turnovers by Baker.
Almost 3.
Almost 3. So they were thankful that the offense found their way, especially with running the football, which we'll talk about with Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, closing out the deal. The offensive line finding ways to be productive, which was good. But defensively, it's just, this is who they are, and they're just going to have to make the best of it. You just got to hope really this offense can carry the way, and that's how it should be, because that's your most healthiest unit on that side of the ball. The offense should be able to put up 24 points or more. And I think I said this on a couple of weeks ago on my podcast before this after the bye started against New York. I was like, if this team can score 24 points per game down the stretch here, they have a good chance to win a lot of these games, because you're not facing great offenses. And usually those offenses tend to make mistakes. And we saw that obviously in overtime. They were about to go for the win, and thankfully we got that forced fumble, and it turned the tide for the Buccaneers.
Yeah. You look at it, I think what you said sums it up perfectly. Yeah. The problem with the bend but don't break offenses, and you're right. Once they get into the red zone, they buckle down a little bit. They're 13th overall in red zone. They're only allowing touchdowns 53.3% of the time. So, they're holding teams to field goals, and we've seen that week in and week out. But when you're allowing these completions, when you're allowing these little 4, 5, 6 yard runs, allowing them to get into these 3rd and short situations, 2nd and short situations they're completing. The Bucs are 28th in the league in total defense. They're allowing 375 yards total on a game. But what's really eye-opening is their pass defense, and that's been bad for the last couple of years. and you look at this defensive backfield, and you got Jamel Dean, who is one of the best press man coverage corners in the league when he's on. Zion McCollum has shown to be really good in both man and zone. You brought Jordan Whitehead back. You thought that was going to be a solid partnership with Antoine Winfield, but both of those guys have struggled. Tyke Smith now potentially missing his fourth straight game if he doesn't play. That's a bigger loss than I think people are talking about, because he's been absolutely stellar. And I think it was in the conversation, the short list of defensive rookie of the year, along with Jared Verse and Quinyon Mitchell before he went down. Now, he's on the outside looking into that, but they really miss him. Their rush defense is still pretty good, 12th in the league, only allowing 117 points. But then you get into the scoring defense, and it's 25th. So bottom 10 in the league, allowing 24 points a game. Their red zone defense is good, but their third down defense is not. They're 24th, allowing teams to convert at 42.9% of the game. Staunch difference between the offense, which has the second best third down defense and the second best red zone offense in the league. So you kind of look at those, how it's trending. And as you mentioned, you're giving these guys confidence. You're giving them confidence every time that they get these short completions and march down the field. Yeah, sure. It ends in a field goal or a field goal attempt. And we saw some misses this week. We saw some misses too. Was it the Giants? He missed a couple as well. You're seeing these, things are breaking the Bucs' way for once, but that's all right. We'll get him on the next drive. We know what we can attack. And the funny thing is, when the Panthers had the ball and they called a timeout, the Panthers called a timeout. You watched the broadcast. CJ Stroud said, "I had them." Like, he knew that he had what he wanted against this defense. And it feels like, doesn't matter if you're a young quarterback, if you're a rookie quarterback, if you're a veteran quarterback, these guys are finding a way to move the balls down the field at the very least, even if it's not turning into points. And I think that's a concerning point, because once you get to the playoffs, you give these guys some confidence to move the ball. They're going to move the ball much better than a guy like Aiden O'Connell might move the ball next week. So I think that's definitely a fair assessment. I want to jump into some of you guys' comments here on the side. Then we'll jump into the offensive side of the ball. Then we'll move on to what's going on in recent news with injury report signings, waiver claims, all that fun stuff. My guy, Panther fan, appreciate you, especially being in here in a podcast after this one. Met him on Fortnite, and he tunes in, so I appreciate him. He's up in here, so the game made him upset and happy at the same time. It's one of those things where, hey, you're excited that your team is doing well, taking a team like the Bucs to the brink. But you're sad that they lose, but you're happy that they're getting a better draft pick, because I think that's what the Panthers need to be playing for. Give us some hopeful for the future, but don't get out of the top 5, top 10 in the draft. Berger says Mike's catch was sick, nasty. The player's reaction was hilarious. Did you watch that yet?
It was Sterling Shepard. That was pretty funny. Yeah, it was great.
I love Antoine Winfield just comes over and with his head down and just shakes his hand very casual, yes, sir.
Yeah,
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
It was great. Anyone can look like an RB1 against the Panthers. They were allowing 160 yards per game on the ground beforehand. So Christopher Cole says, how about that one game against Atlanta where he got blasted with a hit and held onto the ball too? I think he's talking about Rashad there. Or Bucky.
I think he's talking about Mike Evans. That was a while back. That was a while back with the color rush. Yeah, the sideline hit by Keanu Neal.
Right.
Out of bounds.
Crystal Cole says Canales knew what Bowles was doing. Do you think that there was a part of that is true? Do you think that after going to him in practice, kind of knowing his tendencies, that he knew what Bowles was going to dial up? Because Bowles doesn't change his scheme very much.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think some of that plays into it. Obviously, Todd Bowles coming in. He's going to play heavy cover 3. He's going to play a lot of, zone fire blitzes. He's going to do a lot of different things there. So they were doing a good job of bringing in some max protection, making sure Bryce Young had time, to throw the football. And like I said, just take the easy dump offs that were provided and find your one-on-one matchups. They were finding Adam Thielen, using really just comeback routes and some simple concepts to get the ball out of Bryce Young's hands, because when he did have to hold the football, obviously there was pressure in his face. He did a good job of evading, but, there was pressure. It was just, Bryce Young making some good plays off the run there.
I see some running back room comments. I see some Bucky Irving comments. Love our running back room, says Bud Cannabis. Bucky RB1. That's RB1. Bucky Irving. Philip Berger says. So let's jump into the offensive side of the game really quickly. Obviously, not a great game for Baker. Not a great game for Graham Barton either. Baker was able to corral a high snap and a low snap. But Baker, 2 interceptions, just kind of terrible throws. The second one especially, I don't know what he was seeing on that play. He just threw it right to the defender. Not good. He ended up leading the charge for that, in overtime and to get to overtime. So, it doesn't really wash away those 2 bad plays, but just, statistically not a great game for him. 21 to 33, 235 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. A lot of that was towards the end of the game. Obviously, the better looking quarterback was Kyle Trask, 1 for 1 for 5 yards. Can't make that up. But a strong game by Mike Evans as well. He finishes with 8 receptions on 12 targets, 118 yards and a touchdown. Long way to go for that 1,000 yards. We'll get into that a little bit later, but obviously a step in the right direction. But I think we know the stars of the show here were the running backs, and particularly Bucky Irving. Rashad White had a very strong run towards the end of the game, that 2-minute, that third down, and he's being affected so bad on third downs by having to be, because he's the only one that can pass block. You kind of feel bad for him in some instances, but still finishes with 76 yards on 11 attempts with a big 38-yard run to kind of seal the deal at the end there. But Bucky Irving was the star of the show. I mean, 25 attempts, 152 yards, 6.1 yards per carry average. He had a touchdown, 43 long, and then he also contributed in the passing game with 3 receptions for 33 with a long of 16. He's a human joystick. Dante Hall, take a seat, because I think this guy, the way he makes defenders miss, plus, and I know you watched a bevy of him on tape in college, it has just translated seamlessly. That is the most impressive thing, because we're not talking about guys who are accountants right now, or guys who are, working at wherever, their dad's business or whatever. We're talking about NFL players who make a living doing this, and some of the best in the game that he's just shaking off or starting like a rag doll. Let's talk about this offense. What were your thoughts on it, on Baker's play? Obviously can't be sustained, wins can't be sustainable if it's like that, but
right.
Bucky Irving as well.
Yeah, I thought, like I said earlier, the offense was sloppy. A lot of pre-snap penalties. You want to see that cleaned up. Baker Mayfield overall, I thought he finished really strong as far as the fourth quarter and the overtime. I thought he was a lot better. But the interceptions were just, you can't have those. They're unacceptable. Now, the second interception, I think, was a really good play by the defensive back. He really sit on that route. He was supposed to cross field with the mesh concept that they were running. Basically had Sterling Shepard and I think it was Mike Evans going the opposite direction with McMillan coming underneath, who was supposed to be open, but obviously Baker just can't throw it. Like, the guy sits, you got to know that.
You got to see that, though.
Yeah, you got to see it.
Not taken away from Xavier Woods, I think it was.
Right.
Not taking anything away from him.
Made a great play.
But Baker, you got to see that.
Yeah.
That's what I think frustrated me the most. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was just one of those throws you just can't make. And then the first interception, you have K. Dotton open right away. Just give him the ball. Like, you can't hesitate. I know he's looking for the deeper play there, but you got to come off of that, understand what the concept is, and just dump it down. And then when he did throw the ball, it was too late. And obviously the guy made a great play on the football. So yeah, those plays can't happen, especially for this team moving down the stretch here against, like, you have the Raiders coming up, Chargers, you can't do it, Cowboys, and then finishing off with the Panthers and Saints. So yeah, I mean, but aside from that, I thought the offensive line, again, they really led the way in the second half. They really took control. I thought Liam did a good job of committing to the running of the football, understanding that the Panthers struggle to stop the run, and Bucky and Rashad did their thing. Like, I really thought Bucky struggled on the opening drives. Like, he was struggling seeing the holes. He was trying to make the big play before it was there. And I thought he did
struggled with all season too. Is trying to make the big play every play.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I thought him coming out, I think on the second drive, it was either second or third drive, he came out and Rashad went in. And he kind of calmed down after that and really started seeing the hole a lot better. And then just pretty much took over. It was him and Rashad taking over in that second half and led the way for the win. It was unfortunate to see him get hit, or not hit, but hurt on the kickoff return, especially in special teams situation there. You don't want to see that happen. But yeah, they played phenomenal, and he obviously deserved, NFC Offensive Player of the Week.
Yeah, he definitely did. NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Second running back for the Bucs to get it. Sean Tucker, who's kind of become an afterthought. It's just too hard to get these guys touches. You have 3 great running backs. You try to get him involved a few times. You really can't get him. This past game, he had 0 snaps on offense. It's becoming increasingly difficult to get him involved. But if you guys want to get involved with something amazing, the Bucs Cruise, 90% booked. You still have a few more days to get your cabins. Get on it quickly. They are going to sell out very soon. It's going to be an amazing time, guys. This is from March 7th to 10th of next year, coming up here soon, from Key West to Bimini, Bahamas, all the way from leaving out of Fort Lauderdale. There's so many players on this: Brad Johnson, Trey Palmer, Jordan Whitehead, Yaya Diaby, Kalijah Cansey, Graham Barton, Tristan Wirfs, Luke Gedeke, Mike Allstott, Derek Brooks, Mean Gene Deckerhoff, so many more. Who's the guy? Dexter Jackson will be on there, and even more players. Casey Phillips, bunch of the Bucs cheerleaders, Bucko Bruce, Captain Fear, so many more. It's going to be awesome. So much things to do on this cruise as well. It's jam-packed with events like a sail-away party, trivia contest, bingo, cocktail parties, player panels, water volleyball games, theme parties that keep the fun going all cruise long. It's so cool to be able to just sit and interact with some of these guys, have conversations. And again, this is what a lot of guys who went on it last year told me they liked the most about it, is being able to have conversations with the fans and get them to kind of know them as more of a person, not just as a player. Guys, don't miss this awesome opportunity to celebrate with your team, with fans from across the country, of course, with the players, and make lasting memories that will last forever. Tickets go off the shelf on December 11th. Again, 90% full. Get your tickets now. Don't sleep on it. Christmas is right around the corner. Guys, check it out at TampaBayBucsCruise.com. Go check it out. I want to see some people. There that I know. We'll hang out. We'll talk. It'll be an awesome time. So definitely check them out here. Bucky Irving, as you mentioned, NFC Offensive Player of the Week. I think he's over 1,000 all-purpose yards for the season. 5 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns for the season. Doing it on the ground, doing it to the air. Try to do it on the run in the return game. Is he RB1? Is it time to kind of give him that mantle, or is it still, you think, a committee? Obviously, Rachaad White opened the game. They've been averaging about the same amount of snaps the last 2 games. Actually, Bucky had 1 snap more than him this past game. Is it time to say, all right, Bucky, you're RB1, or is it still White and Bucky's kind of show to run?
Yeah, I think they're still going to try to play it by committee, just because of Rachaad White and his importance on third down, especially the pass protection. But obviously, we see the type of impact that Bucky Irving can have. So they leaned into that, especially in this game with the 25 carries. I think 28 total touches through the run and the catching game. So pass receiving. So, obviously they know how important he is as, that type of impact that he brings. I think you could say he's RB1, but I still think it's going to be kind of, based on opponent and how the game is going. And they're going to use all 3 of those backs, or at least Rachaad and Bucky, for the majority of it. And they're going to try to get Sean more involved. But like you said, it's tough because with Bucky playing so well, I mean, it's hard to take him off the field, especially when he's being so effective.
Yeah, it's tough, because he's on his way to 1,000 yards himself here. And Rachaad White can be really effective too in the passing game. Again, 10 yards away from 1,000 yards last year, over 1,500 yards all purpose last year. He's an effective runner. He's also the type of runner that needs kind of volume to kind of ramp up. And you see him ramp up towards the end of the game a lot of the times. And with Bucky splitting the load, he's not getting that opportunity. Again, he's got to be in there on third down, passing protection as well. It's just not Bucky's forte, and certainly not Sean Tucker's forte. That's why he's not on the field as much. But I agree with you. I don't think I still think it's a committee-based approach. I do think Bucky has probably earned some more snaps at this point just because his I always struggle with that damn word. His dynamic ability with the ball in his hands, and ability to make defenders miss, and just kind of the juice that he gives this offense. But it also, I don't know. He's already dealing with a toe injury. Now he's dealing with a hip injury. Those are my concerns with him when they drafted him. Those are my concerns, giving him a bigger workload. Is he's a smaller guy, smaller frame. Those injuries can start to pile up. And I think to prevent those from happening, you have to keep this as a 1-2 punch. And I think for his career, you're probably looking at a 1-2 punch. Even if the 1-2 punch is, let's say you get 30 touches as a running back, it's 20-10 or 18-12, and he's getting the majority of them. He needs to have someone to spell him, because I just don't know if he's going to be able to hold up for an entire NFL season with his size. So RB1A, I would say, but White's still there, RB1 to RB1B. That's my take on the whole situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to expand on your point there, I think, with his size and already the injuries that he's accumulated this season with, his frame and everything, I think it makes sense to keep it as a committee where you keep that high potential for effectiveness throughout the game. And obviously we've seen the impact that he can make with just, 10 to 15 touches. And I think that goes into it, and obviously keep him more fresh, keep him going throughout the season. And that's going to be important as you go through these final games coming up.
Yeah, I got one here from Panther fan. I don't know if he's trolling, or I did see Mike Lombardi bring this up as well. Mike Lombardi is very close with the man's name I'm about to mention. If things do go south, let's start here. Does Bowles need to make it to the NFC Championship game to keep his job, do you think? Is that the progress the Glazers are looking for? Or do you think an appearance in the divisional and a loss, depending on, let's say it's a close loss. What do you think Bowles needs to do to keep his job? Because I don't think just the playoffs is enough for him. I don't think if they get to the playoffs and they get trumped in the wild card round is enough. I think the Glazers want to see improvement here. They start from, the first season where he was kind of, and again, I also sympathize with Bowles too, because his first season was thrown with a coaching staff that was awful. And in the middle of March, wasn't able to make changes. Bruce was lurking around everywhere. So everyone was like, is it Bruce's team? Is it Todd's team? The second year you've got, last year you've got or this year rather, last year you're paying the Brady bill off. So you're not really able to go out and add anybody or do anything, make any changes. This year you're paying to keep your guys, Mike and Antoine and Baker and Tristan, so he really hasn't. Now they brought Jordan Whitehead back, and again, Ben Bredesen has paid off as a buy low option. But again, besides the draft, he hasn't really been able to bring in guys that he's really wanted from the outside, or guys who think he would be good in the fits in the system that cost a couple bucks. I'm not talking about the $2 million, $3 million fines. I'm talking about someone who's going to cost you $6-7 million to improve this or that. So I do feel for him in that regard. But what do you think? Is it NFC Championship or bust? What do you think the Glazers need to see for him to keep his job? Or is it
I think, for me, I would say it's just playoffs. I mean, just making it into the playoffs. I mean, obviously getting back to that divisional round game would be, ideal. If they get to, obviously if they get to the NFC Championship game with what what this team has dealt with injury wise, and just the, I guess, kind of up and down play. I mean, it would be impressive if he made it that far. But to keep his job, I think playoffs is probably the number one thing we're looking for. And obviously getting another NFC South division title, which I think is super possible, especially with the Falcons, the way they're going.
What if they make the playoffs, but they don't win the South? They get in as a wild card. And then they lose in the wild card round.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this might
to be a hot candidate too. I think he's going to get a couple of interviews, whether he takes them or not.
Yeah, a lot of this based on that. I mean, my answer is going to be with Liam Cohen. So it's like, where's Liam Cohen going to be? Is he going to be leaving? Because if he's leaving, then I'm sorry, Todd. I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to make Liam Cohen the head coach. That's just how I feel. That's how I think the Glazers might feel. They did that back in 2009 when they went after Raheem Morris to make him the head coach and let John Gruden go. But
let me ask you this, because we know the past, Raheem Morris, whatever, Dirk Cutter.
Right.
What if Belichick? What about Belichick? Because that's what Panthers fans asking. I said Mike Lombardi has been talking about it. It's been talked about by other people. If Bowles does go, Belichick brings name recognition, puts the spotlight back on the Glazers, which we know they love the spotlight being on this franchise. Certainly turns this small market team into a national story. Gets them back up to 5 primetime games because everyone's going to want to see what the Bucs can do. I don't know if I think Belichick would be okay with keeping Liam Cohen on as the OC. As a staff and kind of take, but again, this would be Belichick taking a huge step back because Jason Light's not giving up GM, and that was just him pretty much being a head coach and coaching the defense. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you laid it out well with all the factors. Like if those factors play out where Bill Belichick is just the head coach and he's obviously in charge of the defense and Jason Light is still in charge of personnel, then I would feel confident about that. If he can keep Liam Cohen, obviously that would be a win. I've been on record. We talked about this off air. It's like, I just don't want to see Liam Cohen go because that guy, he looks like a star coach coming into his own. Now, granted, I don't know how he'll be as a head coach. We just don't know. But from where he conducts and how he's built his offensive staff already, the progress that players have made underneath him have shown so far. I mean, you talked about it, Ben Bredesen, like him playing the best he's ever played in his career.
Yeah.
And then, Baker showing improvement in certain areas. Just a lot of things on the up and up and just the way he creates and designs his plays. So Liam Cohen is obviously the big factor for me. It's like, where does he decide? I know Todd Bowles and Jason Light have a good relationship. I know the Glazers do like Todd Bowles. But yeah, like you said, if the progress doesn't meet their criteria, and I know the Glazers like offense, so that's a big factor too. It's like, where's Liam Cohen going? I think that's where it's all going to decide. But yeah, Belichick would be fun. Obviously that, they have a relationship, or he has a relationship with Jason Light. I believe, I think they have a relationship. He's worked with him. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously that would put the Bucs right in the front fold of Sports Center and, all the networks. So.
Bud Cannibal says, bring in Bill Belichick as the head coach, keep Cohen as the OC, and Vrabel as a DC equals a Super Bowl championship. Berger does not like the whole idea of Bill Belichick. Says he ran the Pats in the ground when TB12 left. He doesn't want a Dirk redo. The players love Todd. I can vouch for that. They really do love Todd. D's still good, but needs linebackers.
Sorry to interrupt. I wouldn't compare Liam Cohen to Dirk Cutter. Like, it's a completely different dynamic. The way they run their schemes and stuff, it's just not the same.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cohen is the future. Whether it's with the Bucs or another franchise, he will have a job with somebody as a head coach in the near future, whether it's this upcoming offseason or maybe 1 or 2 seasons. I do know he does like the neighborhood, like the area. I mean, so I think it would be a pretty enticing offer for him to leave, but you never know. You go to sleep, you wake up, hey, sleep on it. Head coaching jobs don't come around often. There's only 32 of them in the world. You take it when you can get it. Sometimes, and not everyone's Bobby Slowick and Ben Johnson, and those two franchises. Bobby Slowick, you look at what the Texans have done this year, kind of cooling off a bit. Maybe his name cools off a bit as well. We'll see how that all plays out. Obviously, injuries have played a big part of that over there too. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think it all depends, and that's a what if scenario. I just thought it'd be fun exercise because Bill Belichick's name was brought up. But let's get into the injury report. Let's get into some of these signings before we do. We have another special sponsor that I want to shout out, FanGo Tickets. Guys, if you are tired of getting blitzed by big ticketing companies, you got to turn to FanGo Tickets for your exclusively locally owned and operated Tampa Bay ticketing partner that offers fans like you full transparency. You go on there, and they literally, transparency is legit. They show you how much the ticket is, what the tax is, and what they're making off of it. There's no hidden fees or BS that you guys are paying into. They prioritize fair pricing and, again, no hidden fees so that Tampa fans can enjoy events without unexpected costs. Visit fangotickets.com for unbeatable prices, personalized seat selection, and local partnerships that'll take your game day to the next level. Again, I've mentioned, if you guys listen to this, they're starting partnerships with parking garages, with restaurants, soon with hotels, where you can go on there and book your entire trip in one go. Not everyone lives in Tampa, but they like to come to Tampa for the Lightning games, for the Rays games eventually, for the Bucs games, and some concerts. If you're one of those people who tend to want to stay the night while you're here instead of driving back 2 hours, 3 hours, Florida's a giant state, and you really don't realize that until you try to go halfway across the state. You're like, wow, this is so far away. It doesn't look that far away on the map. Why is this 4 hours to get to Jacksonville? 4 hours to get to Tallahassee, 4 hours to get to Miami. Anyways, I digress. But you can book everything one-stop shop. Reservations at a hotel coming soon. Your parking, reservations at a restaurant with combos for cheap beers and burgers and dogs and stuff like that. So you're going to go and pregame without having to worry about the hecticness of finding a seat at the bar or a table before the game. Everything's reserved for you. Check it out. FanGo, locally owned and operated. The biggest thing. We love to support local businesses here. Check them out. FanGoTickets.com. Couple new players on the Bucs. One new. Well, they're both actually former Bucs, but new this week. We'll start with the first one that made a ton of sense. Kayvon Merriweather. They let him go 2 weeks ago. They claimed Mike Edwards cut. Was a cornerback.
Oh, Keenan Isaac.
Everyone loved Keenan Isaac, but he's not a physical dude at all. He's a finesse cornerback, and they don't need that on this team. And then they promoted Troy Hill, which, they had Mike Edwards back. They had to make a move, and Kayvon Merriweather was the one to get axed. Passed through the waiver system, but signed promptly with the Detroit Lions practice squad. Well, the Bucs suffered some injuries last week with Jordan Whitehead going down. This week with Mike Edwards going down. Tyke Smith still in the mend. Tavier Thomas, excellent special teamer. We saw what he looked like when asked to play nickel cornerback. They needed some help in safety. They needed some help on the defensive side. So they signed Kayvon Merriweather off of the Detroit Lions practice squad to the active roster. Now, under the league rules, he must remain on the active roster for at least 3 weeks. Jordan Whitehead was placed on IR last week into reserve. So that means it lines up. If Jordan Whitehead can come back, it lines up perfectly with that 4-week window. If he comes back and the Bucs need to make a move, but he must stay on the Bucs active roster for 3 weeks due to signing him off. What do you think of the move? Obviously, there's been some limitations in his play. We saw that earlier when he was thrust in there. But what are your initial thoughts on that move?
Yeah, I think it's, again, a guy right? So, I don't think too much of it. I think it's just, it's experience, depth that you can bring in, and a guy that knows the system, can play special teams, can, kind of play in the box, do that, strong safety role pretty well. And you're just hoping for, some quality play from him in the meantime when these guys hopefully get back soon. But yeah, solid move, a good player to have for depth, which they need right now.
Yeah, I think he's much better suited for that strong safety role. And with Antoine out, he had to play some free safety, and they cross-trained him in the training camp to play both. But he's much better strong safety than he is roving around the line of scrimmage, coming up with a big hit. He's got some ball skills, and he can do some things, but I like him at strong safety better. The other one that kind of a head-scratching move to me, Bucs had open practice squad spots, and they used one on last year's starter for the most of the season, had 11 starts with the Bucs, 70-something tackles. Ryan Neal is back on the Bucs. Got benched towards the end of the season. They had anyone they could get there. Kayvon Merriweather made 2 starts there. Zion McCullough made a few starts there. I'm surprised they didn't get anybody else there. But Ryan Neal back on the Bucs. He's on the practice squad. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, Bowles talked about it. It's hard to find guys that know the system They get caught up. You can't change your entire defense, but these guys both know the system. Neil, I think more of a break glass in case of emergency, although I wouldn't be surprised to see him elevated this week with Mike Edwards trending towards not playing. Whitehead, not on the Whitehead on injured reserve, and the air, we'll get into Tyke Smith in the injury report here in a minute, but still kind of up in the air with Tyke Smith, his availability.
Yeah, Ryan Neal, I think I made the joke last night, just put him at linebacker and don't look back. I put that on Twitter.
I responded to you.
Yeah, it was it had a lot of people going, so it was funny. But I think they should seriously consider that. He played linebacker last year and didn't look awful. And
who was that against?
That was against the Panthers here at home. It was
right.
in the rain, and he did a pretty good job at linebacker. So yeah, I could see him, it's very similar to Kayvon Merriweather, where he's going to play that strong safety type of position. And I think him near the line of scrimmage is a good plan for him, and allow him to, come up, make tackles, be that extra linebacker for run defense. And then also in the box can go up against tight ends if necessary. And I think that's probably the big reason why they brought these guys back, because they might have to match up against Brock Bowers, which is kind of scary to think about. But, they're just going to need somebody to, try to limit him. But yeah, anybody. Yeah. But I don't know if Ryan Neal's that guy, but it's good to have depth. And again, a guy that knows the system, and we'll see what happens if they do elevate him this week.
I got to jump back into the comments because I saw something that irked me a little bit. Berger, he's one of my best friends, but man, he brought up, he's of course he's worried about the OC. He brought up that the Bucs won a Super Bowl with Byron. Man, they did not win a Super Bowl with Byron. Technically on paper they did, but they won a Super Bowl in spite of Byron. And the only reason they won that Super Bowl, the only reason they had success in the following season is because in BA's offense, and that's the only thing that Byron ever was exposed to other than as a coach, not as a player, is you need to have playmakers at important positions in that offense, and you need to have a lot of them. And remember, they had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, and Rob Gronkowski. They had that trio or quartet the next year until things went off the rails and all that stuff happened. We won't go down there. But in order for that offense to succeed, you need to have playmakers, and it was everywhere. You look at Arizona with Anquan Bolden and Larry Fitzgerald. You look at Pittsburgh when he was there. You look at the Colts when he was there. It needs to have those playmakers. Without that, he had no skill whatsoever to scheme guys open, no understanding of new age football. He was an embarrassment, and me and Byron don't like each other. He didn't know anything about new age football or anything like that. They won games in spite of Byron Leftwich as a coordinator. Brady would often change the play call in the huddle that came through. Yes. So they won in spite of Byron Leftwich. He may have been the one with the headset on, but trust me, he was not the one dictating how the offense went. And you saw that increasingly so in their last season there. But I digress because I want to talk about some of these injuries that we brought up. Tyke Smith, and especially because we were just talking about DBs. He was bumped up, and again, this is a walkthrough. Practices just an guesstimation. He was bumped up to a limited participation today, as was Joe Trine-Strinka, both who missed the game last week. Those guys are pretty important to this offense, and I know a lot of people are done with JTS, and he doesn't get at the quarterback. He doesn't sack the quarterback, but he does do so many other things so well, including drop back into coverage. He's probably one of the best coverage outside linebackers in a 3-4 system in the league. He sets the edge very well. He can apply pressure, and again, I think there's a lot of pressure put him on the start because he was a first-round pick, but he only had 1 year of production in college. He sat out that COVID year, and then, he was stunted his growth his rookie year with them playing JPP, a broken JPP ahead of him and kicking him in the 3-tech. So I don't think he really ever got a fair chance, and I would not be surprised to see him leave this offseason, go somewhere else and thrive in a different system that asks him to, specifically rush the passer in a system that schemes up those for whatever. But just talk about the importance of having those two back for a game like this against the Raiders, where JTS, I'm sure, will be asked to knock Bowers off his route coming off, and Tyke will probably be asked to cover him if he can go.
Yeah, I think, Tyke I would put as probably the more important piece, just because it allows you to do more with your defensive backs and playing, dime packages that they're trying to get to more often. So hopefully Tyke can be back. Then you can move Izzy around and have Izzy back there as your strong safety next to Winfield, and then use, the guys that you just signed, whether that be Merriweather or Ryan Neal, to move around. But yeah, JTS is another important piece where he's kind of that Joker type player where they like to use him as a blitzer, use him as, drop back into coverage, do all sorts of different things with his game. So yeah, I think that's important. But yeah, we'll just have to see. Hopefully these guys make it back, but I would put Tyke as the more important priority right now as far as this game coming up.
And then we had a couple did not participate. Some that were expected. One was a surprise. Tristan Wirfs, I don't expect him to participate as he comes back from that foot knee injury. He was a bit sore after the game. KJ Britt dealing with his ankle injury. He left the game, was ruled out. Mike Edwards left the game with a hamstring. We already know he'll be out for at least this week. Although Bowles did say he's day-to-day with a grade 1 hamstring strain. Bucky Irving with his hip and I guess a back injury as well. We know he's also dealing with a toe injury. Did not participate today. Anthony Nelson dealing with a shoulder injury. Be curious to see when that happened. And the big one is Mike Evans not practicing. We knew about the hamstring injury, but now there's a calf injury. Out of these guys, which one has you most alarmed that they did not practice? Which do you think has a real shot of maybe missing this game, other than Mike Edwards, because I think we've already determined that? And what do you think the trickle-down effect is?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about Mike Evans. I think he'll be okay.
No.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine because he did finish the game. It looked like he was fine in that overtime. So he should be all right. I'm expecting probably the rest of the way, if he just practices on Friday, he's probably good to go. And I think that's probably the same with Bucky Irving, the way they've been treating him lately. Now, out of those guys you mentioned, Bucky would probably be the most concern as far as missing this week, and also just on the field because of how productive he's been and how important he's been to the offense. Now, the great news is you do have good depth there with, Sean Tucker obviously would have to step up and Rashad getting a larger role. So yeah, I mean, right now I'm not too worried. If this was obviously Friday's injury report, then yeah, we would be worried
Right.
for these guys not to play. But I would expect most of those guys to be okay once we hit game time.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I know Mike Evans and Tristan Wirfs are on this list, but we have seen the Bucs overcome Mike Evans and Tristan Wirfs. Not in the same game, but in the same game, the San Francisco game. We've seen Justin School step up and play solid at left tackle. We've seen these wide receivers, I wouldn't call it step up, but do enough to help get some points on the board. But Bucky's really been one of the catalysts on this offense to get them going in both the ground game and pass game. I think he's most important. KJ Britt is one that I'm not sure if he plays, but with his play so far this season, I don't think JJ Russell played any better.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, that's just going to be a weakness for your team right now, unfortunately. Linebacker play, linebacker play overall, and that's including Levante David. Like it just hasn't been good this year. So just gotta roll with it.
Yeah. So I mean, and again, with a week where you're going up against Brock Bowers, who's just been an absolute animal, that is concerning too when you are potentially starting a backup linebacker there. And then full participation, Greg Gainesville, Golston, both full with an ankle. Marquise Watts full with an ankle. He's actually eligible to come off injured reserve this week. If they did make a move, I'm envisioning probably on the defensive line, or maybe Jose Ramirez or something like that. Ernest Brown, Jose Ramirez, one of those guys probably get the cut to get him back up on the roster. Whether he plays on game day or not remains to be seen. But Baker Mayfield was the big one with his Achilles knee injury that he suffered. Full participation. Todd Bowles said it as much after practice. If it was a full go, he would have been a full participant. So good news for them on that front. They cannot lose, no matter how good Kyle Trask looked handing the ball off one time and throwing a 5-yard pass. They can't lose Baker at this point. He's the catalyst of this team going forward. So good news for the Bucs on that front. Want to shout out our final sponsor here, Mosley Heating and Air. When Florida heat hits you hard, trust Mosley Heating and Air to keep you cool and comfortable with over 25 years of experience. Their family-owned business knows what it takes to keep your home's HVAC system running smoothly. Need to repair a new system or maintenance plan, they've got you covered. Call Mosley Heating and Air at 813-230-3742 or visit mosleyheatingandair.com. Shout out to them. Love to have them as a sponsor. They also sponsored my son's Pop Warner team, my daughter's Pop Warner cheerleading team. So appreciate them as well. We'll get a couple questions in here. If you guys have questions, fire them away. Then we'll get out of here. But pretty much we'll be talking about the Raiders here on the next podcast. Go in depth behind enemy lines, kind of get the opponent's perspective, what the weaknesses are, what the strengths are, where the Bucs might be able to exploit. We'll go in depth with a special guest here. Philip Berger says, how many games can the Bucs lose and still win the division? That really depends what Atlanta does. Atlanta has 3 difficult games coming up, or 2 difficult games. They just lost one of them against the Chargers, but they still have Minnesota on the schedule. They still have the Commanders on the schedule. I would say the Bucs have the Chargers, and who knows with Dallas. So far, they haven't looked good. No Dak Prescott. So I think if the Bucs drop one game potentially to the Chargers, that will be a common opponent that they both lost to, but beat everybody else. I think they have a good chance. Right now, they're tied technically, but Atlanta has both tiebreakers. What do you think needs to happen for the Bucs to be able to win the division crown?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they have to finish this stretch 6-1, so that would put you at 10-7. Winning against the Cowboys, beating obviously the Raiders this week. I think the one game you do lose is probably the Chargers, just being out West Coast and how good that defense has been playing. But yeah, I would say 10 wins gets you there, because I think the Falcons are going to stumble and probably finish somewhere between 8 and 9 wins. So there's opportunity. There's opportunity there for the Bucs to take the division yet again.
All right, next week, who are you more worried about? Are you more worried about Brock Bowers going against potentially banged up secondary and linebacking core, or are you more worried about Max Crosby going up against the offensive line and Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, I mean, Max Crosby's a hell of a player, but I'm most worried about Brock Bowers. I mean, I feel pretty confident with our offensive line, especially with our offensive tackles and the way they've been performing. They should be able to contain Max Crosby and limit him. But Brock Bowers has been the Raiders offense. Like, this guy is what, gets them yards and obviously brings them down the field. So yeah, he's going to be a handful for this defense.
All right, final question. What's the Bucs schedule go like down the line? How many wins do they get out of the next 5 games they have? And where do you think that they end up ultimately in the postseason if you have them making it?
Yeah, I think they have a great chance of getting 4 out of the 5 and finishing 10-7. So yeah, I think that's where they end up winning the division, amazingly get a home playoff game, and that will probably be against whoever finishes, I guess, second in the NFC North, probably the Vikings or the Packers, which should be a great game, and it's another opportunity for this team to advance in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, they have it right in front of them. I think they can win 4 out of the 5.
NFC Championship, divisional game, wild card. Where do you have
having them finish? I would probably say divisional round. I don't think they're going to get past that this time. I just think there's just too many holes on defense. I think they can find a way to win one playoff game, but yeah, it's just going to be too tough for them to, I think, advance past the divisional round.
All right, Michael Pless, thank you so much for coming on Real Bucs Talk. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, check us out at Real Bucs Talk. We should have something coming up on the channel here soon. We were supposed to go live, but obviously with me traveling, it just kind of hindered that. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Check us out at Real Bucs Talk on YouTube, and you can check us out on Twitter or X, whatever you guys call it now. but yeah, yeah, we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to draft season, like JC talked about earlier. So that's gonna be always fun, breaking down prospects. I think that's where that's what our channel's known for. Just film analysis overall, but checking out new players, that's always fun.
Yeah, it's a great time. I love the draft season. Last year, I think I did like 167.
Yeah, you were on it.
Myself, it was intense. But that's gonna do it for us here, Michael. So much. I appreciate you so much. Everyone in the chat, I appreciate you guys. Everyone listening on the podcast networks, I appreciate you. Everyone listening on the rewatch, I appreciate you guys. Go ahead, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We'll be back later this week with another episode of the Pirate Parlay podcast here on the Sick Podcast Network, previewing the Las Vegas Raiders. Almost got me. As always, I'm JC Allen. I'm your host. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you later. Peace out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.